Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. You know what? This background doesn't work for me. Let's fix this background, should we? I think so. Let's get something a little more Pacific Northwesty in there. There we go. Oh, see, so much better. Look at that. Welcome, welcome to Creative Convos. It's one of our shows here at Think Northwest. Our mission is advancing the business impact of bold, creative thinkers in the Pacific Northwest. That means brands, that means agencies, that means, you might be an entrepreneurial sort, you might have a startup. Guess what? When you grow, you got to start thinking and acting like a brand. And our members are very, very good at doing that type of stuff. So get into the community, thinknw.org. You'll learn a little bit more about our mission, what we're all about. We hone in on three key areas: growth for individuals and companies, unifying this great Pacific Northwest creative and marketing community, and finally raising visibility for our members here in the Pacific Northwest, nationally and beyond. A few things coming up. Happy hour in Seattle at Color Studios in Pioneer Square. That's happening on Wednesday, May 22nd. And we're really excited about that one. Pedro, thank you so much. Pedro Gomez, one of the co-founders of Colors, offering up his space. And then in June, it is the Cascadia Creative Awards Gala. It is our first Cascadia Creative Awards. Got a lot of entries to go through. So thank you to all of our members and those of you in the community for supporting this new tradition that we're building. We're really stoked about it. And then July, we will have a happy hour in Portland. More details on that coming up. August, I'm thinking we might go to British Columbia. Might go up to Vancouver. In fact, Mark Moran, Vice President of Think Northwest, and I are heading up to a design conference in British Columbia, in Vancouver, at the end of this month. We'll share more details about what we've got going on up there. But we're excited to meet and greet with our folks in British Columbia. On tap also, we'll be heading back out to Boise. I'm rocking the Boise State hat today, in homage to that market and to our members there. Thank you so much for your support. So Creative Convos, this is one of the shows, and we'll be sharing more information about the shows. We did a talent talk with 52 Limited, and we'll be going back to some of that. But Talent Talks is about leadership. It's about talent. It's about anything related to the growth of people within an organization. And the Northwest Marketer, that is coming up, and that's more on the brand side, more marketing centric. And then also we have member check-ins, and we'll be doing more of those with our members. We number about 60 companies that are members, and that number continues to grow. So again, thank you for your support. But today we're talking about creativity. Creative Convos, it's about the work, but it can also be about anything creative. If you're interested in w.org, today we head to Seattle. And our friends at Copacino Fujikado, thank you. First of all, gentlemen, thank you so much for your support of Think Northwest. We're thrilled. We're thrilled to have you because you're one of those agencies here in our region that is one that pops into people's minds when they think Pacific Northwest. You got your Widens, you got your Swifts, you've got your Hydrogens, you've got your Wong Duties, you've got PB Ant, go through the list, right? But you've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. And I'm curious, and we'll go through some of the work for Alaska Communications here, but I want to talk about what it takes to be a creatively led agency, consistently doing such great work, what it takes to maintain that high level. So that's a jump ball for anybody. I'm going to start with an easy question, but I'm curious, what do you think it takes to keep this momentum going for so long? Chris, I think you can unmute. I think we need to unmute you. There we go. No, yeah, there you go.
There we go. That inauspicious start. No, I think I can jump into that one. First of all, thank you for those kind words. We appreciate that. Our longevity is something that is a badge of honor for us. And thank you for everything you're doing for the Northwest creative community building that connection and celebrating the people working hard within it. So with all that said, to your question, I think it really is about value and making sure that we're providing value to our clients, and we have along the way, meeting our clients where they, creds and capes of agencies can be interchangeable. There's a lot of smart, good people working in this business. We do great work. We love our work. We're proud of it. There's a way of working that I think has been successful for us. Our executive director of account management likes to say we're a do-it-together agency, and that partnership, that collaboration, that true we're in this together, both from a process of work and results standpoint, is something that has been positive for us. So as we think about 26 years in, not resting on our laurels, but proud of the success we've had looking forward, it really is continuing to think about how we solve those business problems for our clients, how we work with them the best way, and ultimately the value we're providing to our clients who we adore.
No, I love that. Go ahead. Oh, I got a little echo somewhere. Chris, you might have to mute again, dude. I think that, yeah, there it is. There it is. The agency, one thing about agencies in particular is they're known for something. And in the case of Copacino, the Mariners, the Seattle Mariners, are, and to contextualize this a little bit, I used to work for the Martin Agency. So the Martin Agency is known for Geico. And then when you start peeling the onion out, you're like, oh, UPS. And then, oh, there's DoorDash. And then there's TIAA and all this acts, you start peeling back. And Copacino is the same, where the Mariners are a great entry point, but that's also a little bit of an amuse-bouche into seeing how the agency thinks and how they think for clients. And a lot of it is based on, listen, humor's tough, but the Mariners stuff, let's just be real here, reinvented the way that baseball teams and baseball in general could market itself. And that's one of the things that people ask when I'm out and about outside of the Pacific Northwest is there is a quirkiness, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. It's quite attractive to people. It's familiar work, but it's one of those things where you look at and go, that is definitely a different point of view. So Andrew and Vince, I'll throw this one over to you. Talk about the importance of, and humor is a broad term, but I think that the form that Copacino takes on a lot of this is levity, wit. There's a sharpness to it. So I'm curious about, philosophically, as creative leaders, how you approach, how you approach the process of comedy and humor, because it's not easy.
Yeah, I'll start, and I think it makes sense for me to start because what drew me to Copacino, I'm a native Seattleite, but I spent a lot of my career in Chicago, worked with Vince at agencies in Chicago like Kramer Krasselt and Ogilvy, and
Right.
I got a call from Jim Copacino one day, almost 10 years ago, and said, "Hey, you want to come work on the Mariners?" And I was like, "That's my childhood dream, so yes, I'll do that."
Is the Pope Catholic? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was an easy sell for me to come back and work on that. But to your point, once I got to go deeper and work on other stuff too, and bring some humor and other forms, obviously, to some of our other clients, I was like, wow, this goes way deeper than just the Mariners. So I think that, after doing that for 5 or 6 years, what's been great is that when we find the right opportunity for the right client, that the tone works, like Alaska or like Sound Transit, we embrace it. We're small enough that we've got a bunch of teams that are ready to jump in and really kind of go at it together, which is exactly what we did with this Alaska communications assignment, which we can get into. But I think that for me, and I'll let Vince speak on his perspective. For me, it's about, humor is hard, to your point, and I think that's why being prolific is so important when you're writing scripts, when you're coming up with ways to address it, because a lot of the time it's something you think's funny in your head. Once you get into the page, you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't land at all, or
Or
that
do a
doesn't make any
scratch track.
sense.
Yeah,
And
it's
then of
like,
course,
yeah,
in
not
thinking
that
about Mariners and how we approach other clients as well, like all that humor is based on some type of kernel of truth always. So you can always
great.
track back to that as your North Star.
Right, Vince.
There's always
Anything?
a purpose. There's a
Yeah,
purpose. It may be wacky and ridiculous, but there's always a purpose that you can draw back
right.
to it.
Vince, your thoughts?
Yeah, Doug. No, that's a really interesting question. I try to come at it from a real person point of view. You know, when I'm laying down in bed and trying to watch some TV, some good content, and advertising comes on, the first thing I'll do is look for the skip button. You know, as a real person,
Right.
in the world of just, you know, being out there, I'm like, okay, how do I make advertising suck less? How do I
Right.
make people hate it less? Because that's what I do, right? You pick up a magazine and you flip through the content and then you skip the ads. So that's the way I look at it from a real person. But from a marketing ad person, I look at it as like, you know what, how do I make this brand more likable? And in the case
Mm,
uh, the Mariners, you know, if you grew up here, you're going to love them no matter what, right? Even through the
right.
years, there's a lot of people moving to Seattle, so you have this fan base that's like, hey, you know what, I'm into this. I could be into this team. So you have to get them to like the brand. But with the Mariners, they're not necessarily a winning team, right?
Well, I mean,
Let's
they
put
got
it
to get.
mildly.
Well, they got to get a bat or two. So
Right.
that's a different. That's a different show.
I think I just lost a lot of viewers or listeners.
No, we just need a couple bats. We can't
Yeah.
just rely on Mitch and Ty. So
So I think the beauty of that
That's a
campaign.
different podcast.
exactly.
The beauty of that campaign is that they didn't have to win in order for people to like them, because you got to see them as human beings. You know, you got to lean into their personalities, what they're like as real people, and then they just become lovable, more relatable.
Right.
And I think that's the power of comedy. You know, you get to relate to people and let your guard down and go, yeah, I'm not perfect. I'm just like you. And
Right.
I don't know. I think that was a magic ingredient in that campaign.
Yeah, you know, and I think that Andrew and Vince, you know, a little importing a little bit from Chicago isn't necessarily a bad thing, because Chicago has a very, you know, it's the home of Second City. It's a comedy mecca. Curious how you blended those together, because, you know, I look at people like Mark Gross at High Dive, you know, who is a DDB forever, Real Men of Genius. You take a look at the creative tradition in Chicago, especially around humor, and there's definitely an edge to it. And then you take that grittiness and then translate it into the Pacific Northwest, which has softer edges. I'm curious how you balance that.
Yeah, it's really tough. I was in Chicago for 7 years, and then I moved around quite a bit: LA, Seattle, Hawaii. So I wouldn't brand myself as a Chicago comedy ad person. You know,
Right.
it's all about kind of reading the room
Right.
for me, and understanding, like, okay, what are the client's motivations? What's their brand of humor, and trying to lean into that, and trying to find a way that it aligns with the brief. You know, everyone makes fun of me at the office, and they're like, okay, here's Vince coming in here with the Venn diagrams again, but that's what I love to do. You know, it's like, okay, what do you like? What's the brief saying? And how can I make this fit and present it to you so that I'm not laughed out of the room? You're
Right.
laughing with me at the scripts and not laughing at, like, that is a stupid idea. So
Right.
it kind of depends. I wish I couldn't I gave you a different answer, but it really does depend on each
Sure.
client and what they need. And
Yeah, no, 100%.
like,
And I think it's funny to build on that. You know, I think that Vince and I have always, humor has always been our favorite. You know, our favorite form of advertising. It's just like, if you're going to pick one, that's what we love. But I think what's funny about all the years in Chicago is especially when we were younger, you know, more junior, it was like let's go for this wacky humor, because we came up in the era when it was, you know, Skittles and Starburst and that stuff was just everything. And so we're like, and then our creative director would be like, guys, like that's too far, okay? So I think what's helped over time, and it's so hard to do humor well, and there's not a lot of briefs that you get anymore, to be honest, in my opinion, that's comedic dialogue. It's few and far between. So when you get it, you really sink your teeth into it. But I think that, and Vince touched on this a little bit, I think all those experiences, and starting from like wacky places, even if it wasn't on brief, forced us into this more sort of intelligent, insightful based humor. And I think some of our best mentors led that way. And I think that's really what our sweet spot is now, I think, where it's like, it's funny, but it also is like, oh yeah, that's clever. I never would have went there, versus something a little bit more broader, more slapstick.
Right. We're going to take a look at some work here. I want to go through the work first, and then I want to go through the case study. But before we jump in, I did forget, it's our, we're still early in doing these shows, and I forgot to mention our sponsor, Amazon XCM. Thank you so much for supporting not just this show and all of our programming, but thank you so much for supporting our happy hours, our extremely happy hours. And thank you for supporting the mission in a lot of different ways. So thank you to the team at Amazon and Amazon XCM for your continued support of Think Northwest. Yes. This is the one where I chuckled. You'll get it. So let me just shut my pie hole and let's play this.
Huh? Loading. Still? Our internet freezes more than the Yukon.
This is why we hibernate, honey.
See you in the spring.
Slow internet is unbearable. Switch to Alaska Communications' all-new fiber network, the most reliable home internet for less than GCI. Elevate your internet and save today.
So
it's fun. We all love puns. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So the thing about creative is, and having been an editor, a creative editor at the Trades, Adweek, and the Drum, agency editor, both, just editor fellow, but I critiqued a lot of work. And the things that I really loved about this is that, you have a device that's familiar. You can't go wrong with animals. Fortunately not live animals. But here is the thing. So the pacing was really good. The payoff was great, but it was one of those things where, because sometimes when you have too big of a payoff, you can, the consumer and the public will start losing it. They may latch onto it in certain ways, but if you have a consistent, like middle high punch and your payoff, that endures a little bit more, because you'd rather have somebody go 100 times as opposed to somebody crying their eyes out once and then they forget you. So there was that. I liked the pacing. Again, familiar devices, good payoff. Casting was really good, and it's really hard to cast on that. So walk us through the work a little bit. What you were thinking about, the brief, and of course Alaska Communications. They're all the way up there. Technically, they're in our region. So if you're an Alaska agency or brand, come join us. But walk us through this, because I'll play the case study here second, and then we'll watch the other 30. But walk us through the thinking and the creative and the process from brief to execution.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that this actually came to us as a pitch. We're competing against a few other agencies, and Alaska Communications came to us and they said, we need something different. We need something that's going to get noticed. They were getting outspent by their biggest competitor, 10-1, right? They're called GCI. So they were just getting clobbered, and they had 11% market share at the time. And they were second in the market. So you can see how their biggest competitor monopolized the whole area. So they came to us and said, okay, what can we do? And one of the things that they wanted to really lean on is like, we're from Alaska, like this matters. And what's interesting about that is, I just came from an agency in Hawaii, And you see that a lot with regional brands, right? That there's a lot of pride in
Right.
their place, right? So
Yep.
if you're living in Hawaii, you're seeing a lot of beaches, you're seeing a lot of sun, a lot of blue skies. If you're doing advertising in Alaska, you see the same thing: the beautiful mountains, the snow, the ice, the that sort of nature. The tough thing is that you want to talk about it and say that you're local, but then it all just kind of blends in with a lot of the other work, right? So they're like, how do we stand out?
Yeah.
And that's when we came upon this insight, this idea that Alaskans, they tolerate and deal with a lot of things. The days that are mostly night, the harsh
Right.
harsh weather, right?
Sarah
They-
Palin.
Yeah.
Please continue.
No, they're dealing with a lot of stuff, but they'll deal with all that, but they will not deal with bad internet. Like they won't.
Such a good point.
And they're just like, look, I want my content. I am just like anyone that lives in LA,
Right.
in New York.
Right.
I want that good stuff. Let me stream without worrying about the thaw, about the snow, all that stuff. So that was something that we were like, okay, that's really interesting. So that's sort of the straw that breaks the pardon, but breaks the bear's back, right? And
Smackety schmackety dude.
yeah. Sorry, if you work with me, you're gonna roll your eyes like a million more times.
Good. I like it.
But that's how it all started. And then we leaned into this idea of like, okay, what if it's this family that lives in Alaska? They deal with the same shit that all other Alaskans deal with: really crappy internet. They're getting throttled. They're getting data caps. They can't watch their shows, but they just happen to be bears.
No, and that makes sense because that is endemic. That is absolutely endemic. Andrew, you were going to.
Is it okay, Vince? Is it okay for Vince to say shit on this podcast?
Oh yeah. That's fine.
I was just gonna touch on the fact that, like Vince said, this is very rare because this was a pitch, and it was like with a pitch, most of the time there's no way your idea is going to get made, right? And so it's and we didn't know. It's like it's one of those things where you know the client somewhat, but you've had a few meetings and you make a lot of assumptions and all that stuff, but we had no idea if this work would actually get bought. And of course, as longtime veterans of big pitches, again, in like Chicago or other markets, it's like, yeah, there's no way this will ever get made. And so the fact that this became real work, it's a testament to everyone, and everyone rallied behind this campaign where it's like, pitches, you've got a bunch of teams all work on different ideas. But I think really quickly we all fell in love with this, even though a lot of us, and like me, it wasn't my brainchild, but I jumped in like, I just want to be a part of this,
Right.
And so I actually presented it in the pitch, and it's one of those things where you gotta, we think that ideas lend themselves really well to video scripts when you're pitching, but the problem is how do you make that live in a pitch when and like this, it was over Zoom, and so we had to perform it and do the voices of these bears, which was very funny and very gratifying. But they ended up not only selecting us as the agency, but making this work.
I've suffered through many Andrew Gall performances in my lifetime.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I still work with the guy.
Oh, I'm gonna leave that there. Let's watch a case study and then we'll come back.
It takes a special kind of person to endure the hardships of Alaska. But even they have a breaking point. Slow, unreliable, and expensive home internet. The state of Alaska ranks last in fast, reliable internet to the home. And with 79% market share, one provider was to blame. But Alaska Communications was ready to disrupt. Its new fiber to the home offering would be Alaska's most powerful internet available, much faster, more reliable, and even costing less than the big guy. Being the underdog with just 11% market share and outspent 10-1, how do you make a mark? By tapping into what Alaskans feel is truly unbearable.
Hey, honey, what you doing?
The internet's freezing.
Again?
Again.
Why don't you go and get us a salmon while it loads?
So not the kind of streaming I wanted to do tonight.
When I was a cub, streaming meant standing out in ice cold water, grabbing a coho, biting into its tender belly.
It's gross, Grandpa.
That's living, is what it is.
Buffering is unbearable. Upgrade to Alaska Communications Fiber. Always unlimited, lightning fast, for less. See if Alaska's most powerful internet is near you.
Loading. Still? Our internet freezes more than the Yukon.
This is why we hibernate, honey.
See you in the spring.
Slow internet is unbearable. Switch to Alaska Communications' all-new fiber network. The most reliable home internet for less than GCI. Elevate your internet and save today. Glitchy internet is unbearable. Upgrade to Alaska's fastest internet. Unlimited data, no data caps or throttling, for less. See if Alaska's most powerful internet is near you.
Our bear family wasn't just a campaign mascot. They were the voice of every Alaskan, resonating across all consumer touchpoints. Each touchpoint led the audience to our custom landing page, inviting them to experience the power of fiber and check its availability in their vicinity. From billboards to yard signs, the message was clear. And the introduction of Alaska's fastest fiber was more ferociously successful than we ever imagined. Because buffering, glitches, data caps, and overages, some things are just unbearable.
Yeah, I mean, 11%. That's amazing. And I mean, what a great place to start, because and you can take some more chances. And oh yeah, I don't think we need to watch the 30 because we saw the 30, the salmon. Yep. That's living again. Like that's the thing, is like these are so rewatchable and enjoyable because you have all of these little things in there. I liked the empty snacks for the hibernation spot next to the kid.
I'm glad you saw that.
Yeah. Do the bears have names?
Do they have names? I think they do, but we've been calling them like Teen Bear, Grandpa Bear, right, and Mama Bear.
Mama Bear, right?
Yeah.
That's living.
Living. We added some eyebrows to him that actually was not included in the bear suit, but our good friends at Straight Face helped us out with the
little post. All
kinds of little touches to these characters that made it just so much better.
Yeah, that's the thing too, it's interesting because in radio, I was in radio for a long time, which explains why I sound like this. But one of the things one of my bosses said, one of my program directors said, is people don't necessarily notice great production, but they sure as hell notice bad production.
Yeah.
So you can extend that out, and I'll give credit to Mark Adams, who's like a big shot at iHeart now, and I think he's in New York now. But again, those little touches, you might not necessarily notice them on the first watch or the second watch, but if you're digging into it, but if it weren't there, you would have known something wasn't done.
Yeah, Doug, like, even just the little blinks from Teen Bear, or just the slight eye roll, so you could see the white of Teen Bear's eyes. Like it all made a difference, because before that, the eyes were just a little dead, and you could tell, like, okay, this is obviously eyes. But there was no emotion in there, right?
Right.
And as soon as you saw that eye roll back, and I'm like, oh, that's my teenage daughter. That's great.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so true. And it's interesting. I mean, for brands watching this, that it's important to understand that attention to detail that an agency partner brings. And I don't necessarily know if a brand or a marketer or a CMO, I'm sure there are, but there are plenty of very, very talented marketers that would tap into that. But why is it so important to get those attention to detail? Because it may very well be something that a marketer or CMO is not even thinking about.
I think that's what craft is, right? Is it
Right.
makes it that much better and makes it great. It's the little things that I think you realize, and what you said earlier, it's like you realize when it's wrong, right?
Mhm.
But when you see, even like we're working in Google Slides right now, right? And when you see a poorly designed slide, you go, "Oh, that's doesn't look that great." When it's beautifully designed, you're like, it just makes the presentation um, sing. And I don't know, you just have to be a stickler for details, I guess.
Right.
Funny story, I've been called many things in my life, you know, and I've been called a noodler, a frame fucker,
Uh-huh.
pixel pusher, all those things lovingly.
Where do you stand on kerning? No, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it just adds so much more, but it's so small.
right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and Vince is so good at all those details. I mean, that's he's been such a huge addition to our department for that reason. But I think like you have such a short time to tell your stories, to tell your 15s, your sixes, your 30s. Every
Right.
single second and every piece within that second matters. And so it's just important that everything, every set, every bare eye is there's a purpose to it. There's a reason why it's there.
Yep.
And it's like you said, you may not you may not notice it, but if something's off, you're going to notice that there's something weird going on.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. So I just want to just spend a minute here. So you've got Alaska RV Share, Visit Seattle, Primera Blue Cross, Seattle Mariners. Oh, real quick, my favorite Seattle Mariners spot. I'm gonna go old school, and I'm gonna go with Mr. Snappy. Remember that one? Randy Johnson, Mr. Snappy. That is my favorite. Chris,
Goody.
that one was that because that was really early days too. That was very, very early days.
It was. Yeah. You know, there's a lot in those lore that you have to kind of go back into the recesses of your brain and recesses of the files to remember how
Right.
many there were. But great callback. That's a deep poll, but
That is
I'm
a
here for
deep
it.
cut. Yeah, the one with
I'm here for
Ichiro
it.
and the two Johns on the back of the jersey. So that was a
Good.
good
No
one.
problem.
Do you have a favorite? Oh, I got
Selfishly, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it was because I was there that night. But the Ken Griffey Jr. human cloning spot is
Oh
one of my
shit.
favorite spots of all time. And because it's a great craft and it's just a great idea, and it played into his ego, which he was all about. But that night was magical because we shot it at night in the stadium. He showed up. He was in a great mood. I played selfishly, humble brag, played catch with him that night because I used to be a 17-year-old that used to put in the backgrounds to fill up space and make it look like a ball game. But he was incredible that night. So I think that's one of my favorite ones. But, you know, I love the Nelson Cruz, Nelly's autoglass spot, you know. Andrew and I will often walk by in the hallway at work and just go, call today. Because it was just such an amazing button on that.
Oh my god. You had an experience like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Chase Utley playing catch.
You know, there's all disclosure, Doug, you and I talked earlier this week. You said something I've actually been thinking a lot about, which is take pride, not credit. And I love that. And as we look at this Alaska communications work, I'd be remiss if I didn't say Scott Foreman, our CEO of Publicis Seattle lore, and being a huge pusher of the Uncarrier platform for T-Mobile, was instrumentally involved in this work. And, you know, going to the Mariners work, there was such an awesome team of creativity and thinkers behind that. And as where I sit in this agency now, you know, I have a lot of pride in what we've created. And, you know, to book in that question you asked me earlier, I'm proud of our legacy and the people I've gotten to work with over the years. So not to get sentimental, but I've been thinking a lot about
I'm starting to well up.
Take pride, not credit.
No, I appreciate that though. Yeah. I mean, look at the color of my hair. So, wisdom at some point, eventually. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. I'm going to put you backstage for a minute because I do have a couple of private questions for Andrew and Vince. Well, Chris, you can join too, but seriously, awesome to connect with everybody. Again, huge high five for such great work and for being one of the anchors of Pacific Northwest creativity and success for brands around the country. All right, hold backstage, gentlemen.
Thanks, Doug.
All right.
Thanks,
All
Doug.
right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. A reminder, get to know us, thinknw.org. You can get a hold of me very, very quickly there. It's very, very easy to find me. I'm happy to spend some time with you walking through our mission and the three things that we focus on: growth for individuals and companies, unifying this beautiful Pacific Northwest creative and marketing community, and raising visibility of our members here in the Pacific Northwest, nationally and beyond. On behalf of everybody at Think Northwest, including our amazing board, I want to thank them all so much. And also to our sponsor, Amazon and Amazon XCM. Thank you so much for your support of this show and Think Northwest initiatives. I'm Doug Zanger, and we will see y'all next time.